The woman stumbled into San Elizario, Texas, on a scorching afternoon in July of 1878. Her dress so torn and filthy it barely qualified as clothing anymore. Her face gaunt with hunger and marked by bruises that spoke of recent violence. Zachary Sullivan was loading fence posts onto his wagon outside Miller's General Store when he first saw her collapse against the water trough at the edge of the dusty Main Street. Her hands shook as she cupped the water to her cracked lips, drinking desperately while her eyes darted around like a frightened animal expecting another blow. Something in Zachary's chest tightened at the sight. He had seen plenty of hard-luck cases roll through this border town, but there was something about the raw desperation in this woman's face that made him set down the post he was holding and walk toward her. "Madam," he said softly, removing his hat as he approached. "You look like you could use some help." She flinched away from him, water dripping from her chin, her green eyes wide with fear. Now that he was closer, Zachary could see she was younger than he had first thought, probably not much past 20. Her auburn hair hung in matted tangles down her back, and her feet were wrapped in strips of cloth that were more blood than fabric. Whatever had brought her to San Elizario, it had been a hard journey. "I don't mean you any harm," Zachary continued, keeping his voice gentle. "My name's Zachary Sullivan. I own a ranch about 5 miles north of here. You look like you haven't eaten in days, and those feet need tending to. There's a boarding house just down the street where Mrs. Chen keeps clean rooms. I'd be happy to see you settled there and get you a hot meal." The woman stared at him for a long moment, and Zachary could see her weighing her options. Finally, she spoke, her voice hoarse and barely above a whisper. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." "That's true enough," Zachary admitted. "But my mama raised me to help folks who need it, and you clearly need it. No strings attached, madam, just basic human decency." She looked down at her ruined hands, at the rags hanging from her thin frame, and something in her seemed to break. Her shoulders sagged and tears began to stream down her dirty cheeks. "I'm Amelia Garrett," she whispered, "and I don't have any way to pay you back." "Didn't ask you to," Zachary said. He shrugged off his jacket and held it out to her. "Here, put this on. It isn't much, but it'll cover you better than what you've got." Amelia took the jacket with trembling hands and wrapped it around her shoulders. It was too big for her, hanging almost to her knees, but it was clean and whole, and it smelled like leather and sage. She pulled it tight around herself as if it were armor against the world. Zachary offered her his arm. "Can you walk? That boarding house isn't far." She nodded and took his arm, leaning heavily against him as they made their way down the dusty street. Zachary could feel how thin she was through the jacket, all sharp angles and fragile bones. Whatever she had been through, it had nearly destroyed her. San Elizario was a small town in those days, sitting in the shadow of the Franklin Mountains, its adobe buildings baking in the relentless Texas sun. It had started as a Spanish colonial settlement and still carried that influence in its architecture and many of its residents. The town had seen its share of trouble over the years, from Apache raids to disputes over salt rights, but it had endured. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business, which meant that every eye on the street was watching as Zachary Sullivan walked the ragged stranger toward Mrs. Chen's boarding house. The boarding house was a 2-story adobe building with a wide porch and blue shutters that Mrs. Chen repainted every spring. She was standing on that porch now, a small Chinese woman in her 50s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had come to Texas with her husband back in the 50s to work on the railroad, and when he died of fever, she had taken over the boarding house he had been building and made it into the finest establishment in San Elizario. "Mr. Sullivan," she said as they approached, her eyes taking in Amelia's condition with one swift glance. "I see you've brought me a guest." "Yes, madam," Zachary said. "Miss Garrett here needs a room and a hot meal, and I'm paying." Mrs. Chen nodded briskly. "Bring her inside." "She needs a bath first, and those feet need attention. How long will she be staying?" Zachary looked at Amelia. "As long as she needs to," he said firmly. Mrs. Chen studied him for a moment, then nodded again. "Come with me, Miss Garrett. Let's get you cleaned up and fed." Amelia looked back at Zachary, her eyes full of questions and something that might have been gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'll check on you tomorrow," Zachary promised. "Make sure you have everything you need." He watched as Mrs. Chen led Amelia inside, then he walked back to his wagon, aware of the curious stares following him. Let them wonder, he thought. The woman needed help and he had the means to provide it. That was all that mattered. The truth was, Zachary Sullivan could afford to be generous. His ranch, the Crescent Moon, was one of the most prosperous in the region. He ran cattle and bred horses, and he had a reputation for fair dealing that brought him customers from as far away as El Paso. At 27, he was young to have built such success, but he had worked hard for it, taking over his father's struggling ranch when he was barely 19 and building it into something substantial. He had good men working for him, honest men who respected him, and he had earned the respect of most folks in San Elizario. But success and respect did not fill the empty rooms of his ranch house or warm his bed at night. Zachary had been so focused on building his business that he had never taken the time to court a woman properly. There had been a few brief entanglements over the years, but nothing serious, nothing that had made him think about settling down and starting a family. His mother, in the letters she sent from her sister's place in San Antonio, where she had moved after his father died, was constantly asking when he was going to find a nice girl and give her grandchildren. Zachary had always written back that he was too busy, that the right woman would come along when the time was right. He had not expected her to arrive in rags, half-starved and frightened, on a random Tuesday afternoon. That night, lying in his bed at the ranch, Zachary could not get Amelia Garrett out of his mind. Those green eyes haunted him, full of pain and fear, but also something else, something stubborn and unbroken despite everything she had clearly endured. He wanted to know her story, wanted to understand what had brought her to such a desperate state. But more than that, he wanted to see those eyes light up with something other than fear. He wanted to see her smile. The next morning, Zachary rode into town earlier than usual, telling himself he needed to pick up supplies from the general store. He tied his horse outside Mrs. Chen's boarding house and knocked on the door. Mrs. Chen opened it, her expression knowing. "She's in the dining room having breakfast," she said without preamble. "She slept 12 hours straight and woke up this morning looking almost human again. I had to burn those rags she was wearing, they were past saving. I gave her one of my old dresses for now." "Thank you, Mrs. Chen," Zachary said. "Can I see her?" "That depends on whether she wants to see you," Mrs. Chen said. "Wait here." She disappeared into the house, leaving Zachary standing on the porch feeling oddly nervous. A few minutes later, she returned and gestured for him to come inside. Amelia was sitting at a small table near the window, a plate of eggs and biscuits in front of her. She looked transformed from the day before. Her hair was clean and braided, her face scrubbed free of dirt, revealing a sprinkling of freckles across her nose. The dress Mrs. Chen had given her was simple blue cotton, a bit too short and too wide, but it was clean and whole. Her feet were bandaged, and there was color in her cheeks that had not been there yesterday. She looked up as Zachary entered, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. "Good morning," Zachary said finally, hat in his hands. You look much better." "I feel much better," Amelia said. Her voice was stronger today, no longer that frightened whisper. "Thanks to you and Mrs. Chen. Please sit down." Zachary sat across from her, setting his hat on the table. "I'm glad to see you're eating well." Amelia looked down at her plate. "I can't remember the last time I had a meal like this. Mrs. Chen is a wonderful cook." "That she is," Zachary agreed. There was a moment of awkward silence, then he said, "Miss Garrett, I don't mean to pry, but I'd like to help you beyond just a room and meals. If you're in some kind of trouble, if someone's after you, I need to know so I can help protect you." Amelia's hands tightened on her fork. For a moment, Zachary thought she was going to refuse to answer, but then she took a deep breath and met his eyes. "My husband died 3 months ago," she said quietly. "His name was Robert Garrett. We had a small farm in Missouri, nothing fancy, but it was ours. We had been married 2 years. She paused, swallowing hard. "When Robert died, his brother Edmund claimed that Robert owed him money, a lot of money. He said the farm should go to him to pay the debt. I tried to fight it, but Edmund had friends in town, people who backed up his story. The judge ruled in his favor." "That's terrible," Zachary said. "But how did you end up here like that?" Amelia's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. "Edmund wanted more than just the farm. He said I could stay on as his wife. When I refused, he got angry. He locked me in the cellar for 2 days without food or water. When I still wouldn't agree, he beat me and threw me out with nothing but the clothes on my back. I walked for days, sleeping in ditches, eating whatever I could find. I stole rides on wagons when I could. I just kept moving west, away from him, away from Missouri. I didn't have a plan. I just wanted to get as far away as possible." Zachary felt anger building in his chest, hot and fierce. "He had no right to do that to you." "Right doesn't seem to matter much when you're a woman alone," Amelia said bitterly. "I had nowhere to go, no family to take me in. My parents died when I was 16. Robert was all I had, and when he died, I had nothing." "You're not alone now," Zachary said firmly. "You're in Texas, and Edmund Garrett has no power here. You're safe." Amelia looked at him, her eyes searching his face. "Why are you doing this? You don't know me. For all you know, I could be lying about everything." "Are you lying?" Zachary asked. "No," she said. "Then that's all I need to know," Zachary said. "Look, Miss Garrett, I'm not going to pretend I understand what you've been through. But I do know that everyone deserves a chance to start over, to build a new life. If you want to stay in San Elizario, I can help you do that. I can help you find work, help you get established. No strings attached." Amelia studied him for a long moment. "I don't understand you, Mr. Sullivan. Men don't just help women out of the goodness of their hearts, not in my experience." "Then your experience has been with the wrong kind of men," Zachary said. "I'm not asking for anything in return, Miss Garrett. I'm just offering help." She was quiet for a moment, then she said softly, "I can work. I'm not afraid of hard work. On the farm, I did everything: cooking, cleaning, tending the animals, working the fields. I can earn my keep." "I'm sure you can," Zachary said. "As it happens, I could use someone at the ranch. My housekeeper, Mrs. Rodriguez, has been talking about retiring. She's getting on in years, and the work is getting too hard for her. If you're interested, the job is yours. Room and board included, plus wages." Amelia's eyes widened. "You would hire me?" "Just like that, Zachary confirmed. "Though I should warn you, it's hard work. The ranch house is big, and there's cooking and cleaning for me and the ranch hands who live in the bunkhouse. Mrs. Rodriguez can show you the ropes before she leaves." "When would I start?" Amelia asked. "Whenever you're ready," Zachary said. "Your feet need to heal first. Give it a week or 2. In the meantime, you stay here at Mrs. Chen's, on my tab, and you rest and recover." When you're strong enough, I'll come get you and take you out to the ranch." Amelia looked down at her hands, clasped tightly in her lap. When she looked up again, there were tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "You've given me my life back." Zachary reached across the table and gently covered her hands with his. "You gave yourself your life back when you walked away from Amelia Garrett. All I'm doing is giving you a place to land." Over the next 2 weeks, Zachary found himself riding into town more often than he strictly needed to. He told himself he was just checking on his investment, making sure Amelia was healing properly and would be ready to start work at the ranch. But the truth was, he enjoyed talking to her. Every conversation revealed more layers to her personality, more depth and strength that had somehow survived everything she had been through. He learned that she loved to read and had worked as a schoolteacher before she married Robert. He learned that she had a sharp wit and a quick laugh, though the laugh came hesitantly at first, as if she had forgotten how. He learned that she was fiercely independent and hated feeling like a charity case, which was why the offer of employment meant so much to her. For her part, Amelia found herself looking forward to Zachary's visits. He was unlike any man she had ever known. He listened when she spoke, really listened, as if her thoughts and opinions mattered. He was kind without being condescending, generous without expecting anything in return. And he was handsome, which she tried not to notice but could not help observing. He was tall and lean, with dark hair that was always slightly too long and blue eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. His hands were calloused from hard work, but they were gentle when he helped her up the porch steps while her feet were still healing. Mrs. Chen watched the growing friendship with knowing eyes but said nothing, just made sure there was always fresh coffee when Zachary came to visit. 2 weeks after their first meeting, Zachary arrived at the boarding house with a package under his arm. "What's that?" Amelia asked as they sat on the porch, enjoying the relative cool of the evening. "I went to the general store today," Zachary said, handing her the package. "I hope I got the sizes right. Mrs. Miller helped me guess." Amelia unwrapped the package carefully, and her breath caught when she saw what was inside. There were 2 dresses, one a practical brown cotton and the other a soft green calico, along with new undergarments, stockings, and a pair of sturdy boots. "Mr. Sullivan, I can't accept this," she said, even as her fingers traced the fabric of the green dress lovingly. "It's too much." "You need proper clothes for working at the ranch," Zachary said. "Consider it part of your employment package, and please call me Zachary. I think we've moved past formalities." "Then you should call me Amelia," she said softly. She looked up at him, her eyes bright with emotion. "Thank you, Zachary, for everything. I don't know how I'll ever repay you." "You'll repay me by being happy," Zachary said. "That's all I want." He meant it. Somewhere over the past 2 weeks, Amelia's happiness had become important to him, more important than he wanted to examine too closely. He found himself thinking about her at odd moments during the day, wondering what she was doing, whether she was smiling. At night, he lay awake imagining what it would be like to have her at the ranch, to see her every day, to hear her voice and her laughter filling the empty spaces of his home. He was falling for her, he realized. Hard and fast and completely. It was probably foolish, probably too soon, but his heart did not seem to care about such practical considerations. The day Amelia moved to the ranch, Zachary drove the wagon himself instead of sending one of his hands. He wanted to be the one to bring her home, though he did not examine too closely why the word home felt so right in connection with her. Amelia wore the brown dress and the new boots, her hair pinned up neatly beneath a simple bonnet that Mrs. Chen had given her as a parting gift. She carried a small carpet bag that Mrs. Chen had also provided, filled with the few possessions she had accumulated over the past 2 weeks. The ride to the ranch took about an hour. The landscape was harsh but beautiful, all red rock and tough scrub brush, with the Franklin Mountains rising in the distance. Zachary pointed out landmarks along the way, the creek where his cattle watered, the line of cottonwood trees that marked the northern boundary of his property, the mesa where he had proposed to build a new barn. "It's bigger than I expected," Amelia said as the ranch house came into view. It was a sprawling adobe structure with a red tile roof and a wide veranda that wrapped around 3 sides. Behind it were the bunkhouse, the stables, a chicken coop, and various other outbuildings. "My father started building it when I was a boy," Zachary explained. "I've added on over the years as the ranch has grown. It's probably bigger than one man needs, but I keep thinking someday I'll have a family to fill it." Amelia glanced at him, something flickering in her eyes, but she did not comment. Mrs. Rodriguez was waiting on the veranda, a stout Mexican woman with gray hair and a warm smile. She greeted Amelia in rapid Spanish, then switched to accented English when she saw Amelia's confused expression. "Welcome, welcome," she said, taking Amelia's hands. "Mr. Zachary has told me much about you. Come, I will show you everything." Over the next few hours, Mrs. Rodriguez gave Amelia a thorough tour of the ranch house and explained all the duties that would now fall to her. The house had 6 bedrooms, though only Zachary's was currently in use, a large kitchen with a wood-burning stove, a dining room, a parlor, and Zachary's office. There was also a small room off the kitchen that would be Amelia's, simply furnished but comfortable, with a real bed and a window that looked out over the vegetable garden. "The ranch hands, they eat breakfast and dinner here," Mrs. Rodriguez explained. "Lunch they take with them. You will cook for them big meals, they work hard. Mr. Zachary, he is not fussy, but he likes his coffee strong and his biscuits with honey." Amelia absorbed it all, asking questions, taking mental notes. The work would be demanding, but she welcomed it. It felt good to have a purpose again, to have a place where she belonged. That evening, she cooked her first meal for the ranch, a simple stew with fresh bread. The ranch hands, 6 men ranging in age from young Billy Tate, who was barely 18, to grizzled old Tom Crawford, who had been with Zachary's father, filed in and took their places at the long table. They were polite but curious, sneaking glances at the new housekeeper. Zachary sat at the head of the table, and when Amelia brought out the food, he smiled at her. "Smells delicious." The men dug in with enthusiasm, and Amelia felt a small glow of pride when she heard their appreciative murmurs. After the meal, as she was clearing the dishes, Tom Crawford stopped her. "That was mighty fine cooking, Miss Garrett," he said. "Best stew I've had in a long while." "Thank you, Mr. Crawford," Amelia said, pleased. "You'll do just fine here," Tom said, nodding. "Just fine." Over the following weeks, Amelia settled into a routine at the ranch. She rose before dawn to start the coffee and prepare breakfast. After the men headed out to their work, she cleaned the house, did the laundry, tended the vegetable garden, and prepared the evening meal. It was exhausting work, but it was honest work, and she went to bed each night with a sense of accomplishment. Mrs. Rodriguez stayed on for a month to help with the transition. Then she moved to El Paso to live with her daughter, leaving Amelia fully in charge. By then, Amelia had proven herself more than capable. The ranch hands appreciated her cooking, the house had never been cleaner, and Zachary found himself looking forward to meals not just for the food but for the conversation. He made a point of eating breakfast and dinner with Amelia after the ranch hands had finished. They would sit at the kitchen table, talking about their days, sharing stories about their pasts. Amelia gradually opened up more about her life before Robert, about growing up in a small Missouri town, about her dreams of seeing the world that had been cut short when her parents died, and she had to find work to support herself. Zachary told her about his childhood, about learning to rope and ride from his father, about the hard years after his father died when he had nearly lost the ranch to debt and bad luck. He told her about his mother, about the letters they exchanged, about how she would probably arrive for a visit sometime soon and would undoubtedly interrogate Amelia thoroughly. "Should I be worried?" Amelia asked, smiling. "Probably," Zachary admitted. "My mother is a force of nature." "But she'll love you." The words hung in the air between them, and Zachary realized what he had said. Love. It was not a word he had meant to use, but now that it was out there, he could not take it back. Amelia looked down at her plate, her cheeks flushing. "Well, I hope so. I'd hate to disappoint your mother." "You could never disappoint anyone," Zachary said softly. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, something warm and electric that made Amelia's heart race. She looked away first, suddenly confused by the feelings swirling inside her. She cared for Zachary, cared for him more than she wanted to admit. But Robert had only been dead for months. Was it too soon to feel this way about another man? Was she betraying his memory? That night, lying in her small room, Amelia thought about Robert. Their marriage had been comfortable, affectionate, but if she was honest with herself, it had never been passionate. Robert had been a good man, a kind man, but he had been quiet and reserved, not given to grand gestures or deep conversations. She had loved him in her way, but it had been a gentle, steady love, nothing like the fierce pull she felt toward Zachary. With Zachary, everything felt different. When he looked at her, she felt seen in a way she never had before. When he smiled, her whole day brightened. When their hands accidentally brushed as they passed dishes at dinner, she felt a jolt of awareness that left her breathless. She was falling in love with him. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. She was falling in love with Zachary Sullivan, and she had no idea what to do about it. Zachary was having similar revelations. He had been attracted to Amelia from the start, but attraction had deepened into something far more profound. He loved the way she hummed while she worked. He loved the way she bit her lower lip when she was concentrating on something. He loved the strength in her, the way she had survived something that would have broken a lesser person, and had come out the other side determined to build a new life. He wanted to court her properly, to tell her how he felt, but he held back. It seemed too soon, too presumptuous. She was his employee, dependent on him for her livelihood. What if she felt pressured? What if she said yes out of obligation rather than genuine feeling? He could not bear the thought of putting her in that position. So he waited and he watched, and he hoped that maybe, just maybe, she felt the same way he did. The summer heat intensified, and with it came the hard work of the ranch. There were cattle to move to higher pastures, fences to mend, horses to break. Zachary spent long days in the saddle, coming home dusty and exhausted. But no matter how tired he was, he always made time to sit with Amelia in the evening, to talk and laugh and simply be in her presence. One particularly hot evening in August, Zachary came back to the ranch house to find Amelia sitting on the veranda, her hair down and her feet bare, fanning herself with a folded newspaper. She looked up as he approached, and her face broke into a smile that made his heart skip. "You look like you've been through a dust storm," she said. "Feels like it," Zachary admitted, climbing the steps. "We were rounding up strays all day. I think I swallowed half the desert." "Go wash up," Amelia said. "Dinner will be ready in 20 minutes. I made something cool. Figured nobody would want a hot meal on a night like this." Zachary washed up at the pump behind the house, then changed into clean clothes. When he came back downstairs, Amelia had set out a cold supper of sliced ham, fresh bread, cheese, and a cucumber salad. There was also a pitcher of lemonade, condensation beading on its sides. "This looks perfect," Zachary said, sitting down. They ate in companionable silence for a while, the evening breeze bringing a little relief from the heat. Fireflies were starting to appear in the garden, their tiny lights winking on and off. "I got a letter from my mother today," Zachary said finally. "She's coming to visit next month." "That's wonderful," Amelia said. "You must be excited." "I am," Zachary said, "but I'm also nervous. She's going to have a lot of questions, especially about you." "About me?" Amelia asked, surprised. "I may have mentioned you in my letters," Zachary admitted. "More than once, she's curious." Amelia felt her cheeks heat. "What did you tell her about me?" "The truth," Zachary said. "That you're smart and strong and the best thing that's happened to this ranch in years." Their eyes met, and Amelia felt that now familiar jolt of electricity. "Zachary," she said softly, "I need to tell you something." "What is it?" he asked. She took a deep breath. "I care for you. More than I should, probably. More than is proper, given that I work for you and that my husband has only been dead a few months. But I can't help it. You've been so kind to me, so good, and somewhere along the way I started to have feelings for you. Real feelings." Zachary felt like he could not breathe. "Amelia, I've been wanting to say something similar for weeks now, but I didn't want to pressure you or make you uncomfortable. I care for you too. More than care, if I'm being honest. I think I'm falling in love with you." Amelia's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "Really, really," Zachary confirmed. He reached across the table and took her hand. "I know it's complicated. I know there are probably a dozen reasons why this is a bad idea, but I can't help how I feel." "I don't think it's a bad idea," Amelia said. "I think it's the best idea I've heard in a long time." Zachary stood up and walked around the table, pulling her to her feet. For a moment they just stood there, hands clasped, looking at each other. Then Zachary slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, leaned down and kissed her. It was a gentle kiss, tentative and sweet, but it sent warmth flooding through Amelia's entire body. She kissed him back, her hands coming up to rest on his chest, feeling his heart pounding beneath her palms. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. "I've wanted to do that for so long," Zachary murmured. "I've wanted you to," Amelia admitted. He kissed her again, deeper this time, his arms wrapping around her waist and pulling her close. Amelia melted against him, feeling safe and cherished and home in a way she had never felt before. When they finally broke apart, Zachary rested his forehead against hers. "I want to court you properly," he said. "I want to do this right." "We're already living in the same house," Amelia pointed out, laughing. "I think we're a bit past proper." "Then I want to marry you," Zachary said. "When you're ready, when enough time has passed that you feel comfortable with it, I want to make you my wife, Amelia. I want to spend the rest of my life with you." Amelia pulled back to look at him. "Are you proposing to me?" "Not officially," Zachary said. "Not yet, but I'm letting you know my intentions. I love you, Amelia Garrett, and I want to build a life with you." "I love you too," Amelia whispered. "And yes, when the time is right, I want to marry you." They kissed again, sealing the promise between them, and when they finally went inside hand in hand, the future stretched out before them bright with possibility. The next few weeks were the happiest Amelia could remember. She and Zachary were careful to maintain propriety in front of the ranch hands, but in the evenings, after everyone else had gone to bed, they would sit together on the veranda, talking and kissing and making plans for their future. Zachary was true to his word about courting her properly. He brought her wildflowers from the range, taught her to ride his gentlest mare, took her on picnics to beautiful spots on the ranch. He made her feel precious and valued in a way she had never experienced before. For her part, Amelia threw herself into making the ranch house a real home. She planted flowers around the veranda, made curtains for the windows, filled the rooms with small touches that made the space feel warm and welcoming. She was building a life here, building a future, and it felt right in a way nothing else ever had. In September, Zachary's mother arrived. Margaret Sullivan was a small, energetic woman in her early 50s with sharp blue eyes and a quick smile. She took one look at Amelia and pulled her into a tight hug. "So you're the woman who's stolen my son's heart," she said. "About time he found someone worthy of him." "Mama," Zachary protested, embarrassed. Margaret waved him off. "Hush. Let me talk to Amelia. We have a lot to discuss." She linked her arm through Amelia's and led her off for a walk in the garden, leaving Zachary standing on the veranda, shaking his head. "Your son is a good man," Amelia said as they walked among the vegetables. "The best," Margaret agreed. "His father would be so proud of what he's built here, but a ranch is not enough. A man needs a family, needs love. I was starting to worry Zachary would never find it." "I think we found each other," Amelia said softly. Margaret stopped and turned to face her. "Zachary told me about your circumstances, about what you've been through. I want you to know that your past doesn't matter to me. All I care about is that you love my son and that he loves you." "Do you love him?" "With all my heart," Amelia said without hesitation. "Good," Margaret said, satisfied. "Then you have my blessing for whatever that's worth." "It's worth a lot," Amelia said, feeling tears prick her eyes. "Thank you." Margaret stayed for 2 weeks, and by the time she left, she and Amelia had become fast friends. Before she boarded the stage back to San Antonio, she pulled Amelia aside. "Take care of him," she said, "and let him take care of you. You both deserve to be happy." "I will," Amelia promised. As the autumn days grew shorter and cooler, Zachary and Amelia's relationship deepened. They talked about everything, their hopes and dreams, their fears and regrets. Zachary told her about the loneliness he had felt running the ranch alone, about how her presence had transformed not just his house but his life. Amelia told him about the guilt she sometimes felt over how quickly she had moved on from Robert, about her fear that she was being disloyal to his memory. "You're not being disloyal," Zachary assured her. "You're living. That's what Robert would have wanted for you. You can't spend the rest of your life mourning someone who's gone. You have to embrace the future." "I know," Amelia said. "And I am. With you." In October, 6 months after Robert's death and 4 months after Amelia had arrived in San Elizario, Zachary officially proposed. He took her to a spot on the ranch where a natural spring bubbled up from the rocks, creating a small oasis of green in the otherwise harsh landscape. It was a beautiful place, peaceful and secluded, with cottonwood trees providing shade and the sound of water creating a gentle music. "I used to come here when I was a boy," Zachary said as they sat on a flat rock near the spring. "When things got hard, when I needed to think. It's always been my favorite place on the ranch." "It's beautiful," Amelia said, looking around. "I wanted to bring you here because this is where I want to build our house," Zachary said. "Someday when we're ready, a place just for us, a fresh start." Amelia turned to look at him, her heart racing. Zachary took her hands in his. "Amelia Garrett, I know we haven't known each other long. I know by some standards it's too soon. But I also know that I love you more than I thought it was possible to love another person. I want to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my life. I want to build a family with you, grow old with you. Will you marry me?" He pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it, revealing a simple gold band with a small diamond. Amelia looked at the ring, then at Zachary's face, seeing all the love and hope there, and she felt her heart swell until she thought it might burst. "Yes," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, I'll marry you." Zachary slipped the ring on her finger, then pulled her into his arms and kissed her deeply. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were crying and laughing at the same time. "I can't believe you said yes," Zachary murmured. "Did you think I would say no?" Amelia asked. "I hoped you wouldn't," Zachary admitted. "But you could have anyone, Amelia. You're smart and beautiful and strong. You could go anywhere, do anything." "I want to be here," Amelia said firmly. "With you. This is where I belong." They stayed at the spring until sunset, talking about their wedding, about their future, about all the things they wanted to do together. By the time they rode back to the ranch house, stars were starting to appear in the darkening sky, and Amelia felt like her heart was full to bursting with joy. They decided to marry in November, a small ceremony in San Elizario with just close friends and family. Margaret came back from San Antonio, thrilled beyond measure. Mrs. Chen helped Amelia make a simple white dress, and Tom Crawford stood up as Zachary's best man. The ceremony took place in the small Catholic church in San Elizario, with Father Miguel officiating. Amelia walked down the aisle alone, her head held high, looking more beautiful than Zachary had ever seen her. She wore the white dress with lace at the collar and sleeves, and she carried a bouquet of late-blooming wildflowers. When she reached the altar and took Zachary's hands, she whispered, "I love you." "I love you too," he whispered back. They spoke their vows in steady voices, promising to love and cherish each other through all the days of their lives. When Father Miguel pronounced them husband and wife, Zachary kissed Amelia with all the love and passion in his heart, and the small congregation erupted in applause. The reception was held at the ranch, with tables set up on the veranda and in the yard. Mrs. Chen had helped prepare a feast, and there was music and dancing late into the night. Amelia danced with Zachary, with Tom Crawford, with young Billy Tate, with all the ranch hands who had become like family to her. As the evening wound down and the guests began to leave, Zachary took Amelia's hand and led her away from the crowd. "Where are we going?" she asked, laughing. "Somewhere private," Zachary said with a grin. He took her to his bedroom, their bedroom now, where he had filled the space with candles and more wildflowers. The bed was made up with fresh linens and the window was open, letting in the cool night breeze. "Oh, Zachary," Amelia breathed. "It's perfect." He turned to her, his eyes dark with desire. "You're perfect," he said. "I can't believe you're my wife." "Believe it," Amelia said, stepping into his arms. "I'm yours now and always." They came together in a kiss that quickly deepened into passion. Zachary's hands trembled slightly as he helped Amelia out of her wedding dress, his touch reverent and gentle. Amelia felt a moment of nervousness. Her only experience had been with Robert, and that had been dutiful and quick. But Zachary was patient, taking his time, making sure she was comfortable, that she was ready. When they finally came together, it was with a tenderness and passion that brought tears to Amelia's eyes. This was what it was supposed to be like, she realized. This joining of bodies and hearts, this complete trust and surrender. With Zachary, she felt safe enough to be vulnerable, brave enough to show her desire. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the candlelight, Zachary's fingers tracing lazy patterns on Amelia's bare shoulder. "Are you happy?" he asked softly. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Amelia said, snuggling closer to him. "You've given me everything, Zachary. A home, a purpose, love. You've given me my life back." "You gave me a life worth living," Zachary said, kissing her forehead. "Before you, I was just going through the motions. Now every day feels like a gift." They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, the candles burning down to nothing, the sounds of the ranch settling into nighttime quiet around them. The first year of their marriage was everything Amelia could have hoped for and more. She thrived as the mistress of the ranch, managing the household with efficiency and warmth. The ranch hands adored her, often coming to her with problems both practical and personal, and she became a kind of mother figure to some of the younger men. Zachary had never been happier. Coming home to Amelia every night, sharing meals and conversation and bed with her, watching her move through his house with confidence and grace, it was everything he had dreamed of and more. They worked well together, partners in every sense of the word. Amelia had good instincts about the business side of the ranch, and Zachary often consulted her on decisions, valuing her opinion. In the spring of 1879, Amelia discovered she was pregnant. She had suspected for a few weeks, but she waited until she was sure before telling Zachary. One evening after dinner, as they sat on the veranda watching the sunset, she took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. "There's someone I want you to meet," she said softly. It took Zachary a moment to understand, and when he did, his face broke into a huge grin. "Really?" "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," Amelia said, laughing at his expression. "You're going to be a father, Zachary." He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "I can't believe it. We're going to have a baby." "Are you happy?" Amelia asked. "Happy doesn't even begin to cover it," Zachary said. "I'm over the moon. I'm ecstatic. I'm terrified." "Terrified," Amelia repeated, pulling back to look at him. "What if I'm not a good father?" Zachary said. "What if I don't know what to do?" "You'll be a wonderful father," Amelia assured him. "You're kind and patient and loving. Our child will be lucky to have you." Zachary kissed her gently. "And lucky to have you as a mother." They wrote to Margaret immediately, and she wrote back with such excitement that her words were almost illegible. She promised to come for the birth, to help Amelia with the baby, and she filled pages with advice and instructions that made them both laugh. As Amelia's pregnancy progressed, Zachary became increasingly protective. He did not want her lifting heavy things or working too hard. He hired a young woman from town, Maria Lopez, to help with the housework and cooking, over Amelia's protests that she was perfectly capable of managing. "I know you're capable," Zachary said, "but I want you to rest and take care of yourself and the baby. Let Maria do the heavy work." Amelia gave in, secretly grateful for the help as her body grew heavy with child. She spent the summer months reading, sewing baby clothes, and preparing the nursery in one of the upstairs bedrooms. Zachary painted the room a soft yellow and built a beautiful wooden cradle with his own hands. In October, as the weather began to cool, Amelia went into labor. Margaret had arrived 2 weeks earlier and took charge immediately, sending Zachary for the doctor and boiling water and preparing the bedroom. The labor was long and difficult, lasting through the night and into the next afternoon. Zachary paced the parlor, nearly wearing a hole in the floor, jumping at every sound from upstairs. Finally, just as the sun was beginning to set, he heard the thin wail of a baby crying. He bolted up the stairs and burst into the bedroom to find Margaret holding a small bundle while the doctor tended to Amelia. "It's a boy," Margaret said, her face glowing. "A healthy baby boy." Zachary looked at Amelia, who was pale and exhausted but smiling. "We have a son," she said softly. The doctor finished his work and stepped back. "Mother and baby are both doing well. You can hold your son now if you like." Zachary took the bundle from his mother with shaking hands. The baby was tiny, with a shock of dark hair and eyes that seemed to look right at him. Zachary felt his heart expand in a way he had not known was possible. "Hello, little one," he whispered. "I'm your papa." He carried the baby over to Amelia and placed him carefully in her arms. She gazed down at their son with such love and wonder that Zachary felt tears prick his eyes. "He's perfect," Amelia murmured. "Absolutely perfect." "What should we name him?" Zachary asked. They had discussed names over the past months but had not settled on anything definite. Now, looking at their son, Amelia knew exactly what he should be called. James, she said. After your father. James Sullivan. Zachary nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. His father would have loved this moment, would have been so proud to have a grandson carrying his name. James, he said finally. It's perfect. The first few months with baby James were challenging but joyful. He was a good baby, healthy and strong, with a lusty cry that left no doubt he was hungry. Amelia nursed him while Zachary hovered anxiously, wanting to help but not quite sure what to do. Margaret stayed for 6 weeks, teaching Amelia everything she knew about babies, and by the time she left to return to San Antonio, Amelia felt confident in her new role as mother. Zachary proved to be a devoted father. He would sit for hours holding James, talking to him in a soft voice, marveling at his tiny fingers and toes. On the rare occasions when James cried inconsolably in the night, Zachary would walk the floor with him, singing old cowboy songs until the baby fell back asleep. "You're spoiling him," Amelia would say, but she was smiling. "He's my son," Zachary would reply. "I'm allowed to spoil him." As James grew, the ranch continued to prosper. Zachary had developed a reputation for breeding some of the finest horses in West Texas, and buyers came from as far away as New Mexico and Arizona to purchase his stock. He hired more hands, expanded the grazing lands, and built the new barn he had been planning. Amelia juggled motherhood and managing the household with grace, though there were days when she felt overwhelmed by the demands of both. But Zachary was always there to support her, taking over with James when she needed a break, helping with household tasks when she was tired. They were partners in every sense, and their love continued to deepen as they navigated the challenges and joys of building a life together. When James was 2 years old, Amelia discovered she was pregnant again. This time she was less anxious, more confident in her ability to handle another child. The pregnancy was easier than the first, and in the spring of 1882 she gave birth to a daughter. They named her Sarah, after Amelia's mother, and she was the image of her mother with auburn hair and green eyes. James was fascinated by his baby sister, wanting to help with everything, and Amelia and Zachary found themselves with a full, happy house. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. The children grew healthy and strong, the ranch continued to prosper, and Zachary and Amelia's love for each other only deepened with time. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Zachary took Amelia back to the spring where he had proposed. "Remember when I said I wanted to build a house here?" he asked as they sat on the same flat rock. "I remember," Amelia said. "I'm ready to start building," Zachary said. "The ranch house is getting crowded with the children, and I want us to have a place that's truly ours, built exactly the way we want it." "Are you sure?" Amelia asked. "That's a big undertaking." "I'm sure," Zachary said. "I want to build you a house worthy of you, Amelia. A place where we can grow old together, where our children can bring their children someday." Amelia looked around at the peaceful spring, at the cottonwood trees and the clear water, and she felt a sense of rightness settle over her. "Then let's build it," she said. Over the next year, Zachary worked with a builder from El Paso to design and construct a beautiful stone house near the spring. It had large windows that let in plenty of light, a wide porch that wrapped around the entire house, and enough bedrooms for a large family. There was a modern kitchen with a new cast iron stove, a parlor with a fireplace, and a library where Amelia could keep her growing collection of books. They moved into the new house in the fall of 1883, and it felt like a new beginning. The old ranch house became the bunkhouse for the hands, and the original bunkhouse was converted into storage. Standing on the porch of their new home, Watching the sun set over the ranch with their children playing in the yard, Amelia felt a wave of contentment wash over her. She thought about the desperate, broken woman she had been when she first stumbled into San Elizario 5 years earlier, wearing rags and expecting nothing but more hardship from life. Zachary came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How far we've come," Amelia said softly. "How different my life is now from what it was." "Do you ever regret it?" Zachary asked. "Coming here, marrying me?" Amelia turned in his arms to face him. "Never," she said firmly. "You saved me, Zachary. You gave me back my dignity, my hope, my life. You loved me when I had nothing to offer but broken pieces, and you helped me put those pieces back together into something beautiful." "You were never broken," Zachary said, cupping her face in his hands. "You were strong and brave and beautiful, even in those rags. I just gave you a place to be those things safely." "You gave me everything," Amelia insisted. "A home, a family, love, real love, the kind I didn't even know existed." Zachary kissed her tenderly. "You gave me just as much. Before you, I was just existing, going through the motions. You made me want to live, to build something meaningful. You made me whole." They stood there on the porch, wrapped in each other's arms, watching their children play as the sun painted the sky in brilliant shades of orange and gold. Inside the house, dinner was waiting, warm and ready. Beyond them, the ranch stretched out, prosperous and peaceful. Around them was the life they had built together, brick by brick, day by day, love by love. As the years passed, the Sullivan family continued to grow and thrive. 2 more children joined James and Sarah, a boy named Thomas and another girl named Elizabeth. The ranch became one of the most successful in the region, known not just for quality horses and cattle but for fair dealing and honest business practices. Amelia became a respected figure in San Elizario, known for her kindness and generosity. She started a small school on the ranch for the children of the workers, teaching them to read and write herself. She organized a quilting circle for the women in town, created a lending library, and became someone people turned to for help and advice. Zachary served on the town council, helping to bring improvements to San Elizario like a new church and a proper school building. Together, he and Amelia became pillars of the community, respected and loved by all who knew them. Their children grew up strong and confident, secure in the love of their parents and the stability of their home. James showed an early aptitude for working with horses and became his father's right hand on the ranch. Sarah had her mother's love of learning and spent hours in the library, reading everything she could get her hands on. Thomas was adventurous and bold, always getting into scrapes but with a heart of gold. Elizabeth was the baby, adored by her siblings and her parents alike, with a sunny disposition that brightened every room she entered. Margaret visited often, delighting in her grandchildren and the life her son had built. She lived to see all 4 of her grandchildren grown, passing peacefully in her sleep at the age of 72. Amelia grieved with Zachary, holding him through the dark days after his mother's death, being his strength when he needed it most. "She loved you like a daughter," Zachary told Amelia at the funeral. "She told me once that you were the best thing that ever happened to this family." "She was one of the best things that happened to me," Amelia said through her tears. "She welcomed me with open arms when she had every reason to be suspicious. She gave me a mother's love when I thought I'd never have that again." Time moved on, as it always does. The children grew up and began lives of their own. James married a rancher's daughter from El Paso and took over the day-to-day running of the ranch. Sarah became a teacher, opening a proper school in San Elizario that served children from all over the county. Thomas went east to college and came back with a degree in engineering, helping to bring the railroad closer to San Elizario. Elizabeth married a doctor and settled in town, where she raised her own family. Zachary and Amelia found themselves alone in the house by the spring, the same house where they had raised their children and built their dreams. But alone did not mean lonely. They had each other, and after more than 30 years of marriage, they were more in love than ever. They spent their days working on the ranch at a slower pace, taking time to enjoy the simple pleasures of life. They sat on the porch in the evenings, watching the sun set over the land they had built together. They read books aloud to each other, took walks by the spring, and welcomed visits from their children and growing number of grandchildren. One evening, as they sat on the porch in their rocking chairs, Zachary reached over and took Amelia's hand. Her hair was silver now, her face lined with the passage of years, but to him she was as beautiful as the day he first saw her at that water trough in San Elizario. "You remember the day we met?" he asked. "Every detail," Amelia said, squeezing his hand. "I was so scared, so desperate. I thought my life was over. And I thought you were the most courageous person I had ever seen," Zachary said. "Walking all that way, surviving everything you survived and still having the strength to keep going." "I kept going because I didn't have a choice," Amelia said. "But you gave me a reason to want to keep going. You showed me that life could be good again, that I could be happy again." "We've had a good life, haven't we?" Zachary said. "The best," Amelia agreed. "Better than I ever dreamed possible." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars come out one by one in the darkening sky. From the direction of the old ranch house, now home to James and his family, they could hear the sound of children laughing. "Our legacy," Zachary said, nodding toward the sound. 4 children, 12 grandchildren so far, and who knows how many more to come. Not bad for a cowboy and a woman who arrived in rags. "You clothed me in dignity," Amelia said softly. "You wrapped me in love. You gave me a life beyond my wildest dreams." "We gave each other that," Zachary corrected. "I was just going through the motions before you. You taught me how to really live, how to love with my whole heart." Amelia stood and moved to sit on Zachary's lap, something she still did despite their ages, despite the creaking of the rocking chair. He wrapped his arms around her, and she rested her head on his shoulder. "I love you, Zachary Sullivan," she murmured. "I have loved you from almost the first moment I met you, and I will love you until my last breath and beyond." "I love you too, Amelia Sullivan," Zachary said, kissing the top of her head. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me. You are my heart, my home, my everything." They sat there as the night deepened around them, 2 souls who had found each other against all odds, who had built a life and a love that had stood the test of time. The woman who had arrived in San Elizario broken and desperate had become strong and whole, surrounded by family and love. The lonely cowboy who had offered help to a stranger had found the missing piece of his heart. Their story was one of hope and resilience, of kindness rewarded and love triumphant. It was a story that would be told and retold by their descendants for generations to come, a testament to the power of compassion and the transformative nature of true love. As they sat wrapped in each other's arms under the Texas stars, Zachary and Amelia knew that whatever time they had left, they would spend it together, still in love, still grateful for the day their paths had crossed in a dusty border town so many years ago. They had built something beautiful together, something lasting, and they would cherish it and each other for all their remaining days. The years continued to pass gently for Zachary and Amelia Sullivan. They remained active in their community and on the ranch, though they left the heavy work to their son James and the capable hands he had hired. Their days fell into a peaceful rhythm of small pleasures, Morning coffee on the porch, afternoon walks to the spring, evening spent reading or simply talking about everything and nothing. Their grandchildren adored them, often running up to the house by the spring to hear their grandfather's stories about the old days or to help their grandmother in her garden. Amelia had developed a beautiful flower garden around the house, filled with roses and wildflowers and herbs. She would teach her granddaughters the names of the plants and their uses, passing on knowledge the way Margaret had once passed it to her. Zachary taught his grandsons to rope and ride, to mend fences and care for horses. He was patient and kind, never raising his voice even when the boys made mistakes, always encouraging them to try again. One spring afternoon, when Zachary was 73 and Amelia was 68, they decided to ride out to the far pasture together, something they had not done in years. They took it slow, their horses walking at an easy pace, and when they reached a particularly beautiful vista overlooking the ranch, they stopped. "Look at all this," Zachary said, gesturing at the land spread out below them. "We built this together, Amelia. From almost nothing to something that will last for generations." "It's not the land I'm most proud of," Amelia said, looking at him with eyes still bright with love. "It's the family we built. 4 wonderful children, all those beautiful grandchildren, a legacy of love and kindness. That's what matters most." Zachary reached over and took her hand, just as he had done thousands of times over their long marriage. "You're right, as always. The ranch is just land and buildings. Our real legacy is the love we've shared and passed on to our children." They rode back slowly, and that evening, surrounded by children and grandchildren who had come for Sunday dinner, they sat at the head of the table and looked around at all the faces they loved. This was what mattered, Amelia thought. This abundance of family, of love, of connection. She had come to Texas with nothing, running from pain and loss, and she had found everything that truly mattered. After dinner, when everyone had gone home except for James's family who lived in the old ranch house, Zachary and Amelia walked back to their house hand in hand. The sun was setting, painting the sky in those brilliant colors they had watched together for more than 40 years. "You ever think about Edmund Garrett?" Zachary asked suddenly. It was a name Amelia had not heard spoken aloud in decades. She considered the question carefully. "Sometimes," she admitted. "I wonder what became of him. But mostly I just feel grateful that he threw me out. If he hadn't, I never would have come to Texas. I never would have met you. In a strange way, his cruelty led me to the greatest happiness of my life." "I'm grateful too, then," Zachary said, "though I wish you hadn't had to suffer to get here." "The suffering made me strong enough to recognize what we have," Amelia said. "It taught me not to take love for granted, to cherish every moment of happiness. I wouldn't change anything, Zachary. Every hard step of that journey led me to you, and that makes it all worthwhile." They reached their house and climbed the steps to the porch slowly, their joints not as flexible as they once were, but their hearts still young. Inside, Amelia made tea and they sat in their comfortable chairs in the parlor, the ones that had molded to their bodies over years of use. "Tell me again," Amelia said, "about the day we met." Zachary smiled. He had told this story many times over the years to their children, to their grandchildren, but Amelia never tired of hearing it from his perspective. "I was loading fence posts," he began, "when I saw this woman collapse by the water trough. She was in rags, clearly half-starved, but when I looked at her face, I saw the most beautiful and courageous person I had ever encountered. Her eyes were so green, even through all that fear and pain, and I knew in that moment that my life was about to change forever." "I thought you were going to hurt me," Amelia admitted. "I had learned not to trust men, not to expect kindness, But you offered me your jacket, and there was something in your eyes that made me believe you were different. You were so thin, Zachary remembered. I could feel your bones when you took my arm. All I wanted was to feed you, to see you safe and cared for. I had no idea that helping you would be the smartest thing I ever did. You did not just help me, Amelia said firmly. You saved me. You gave me back my life, my dignity, my hope. You showed me what real love looks like. We saved each other, Zachary said. I was lonely before you came, empty in ways I did not even recognize. You filled all those empty spaces with light and love and purpose. They talked long into the night, reminiscing about their years together, the trials they had faced and overcome, the joys they had shared. When they finally went to bed, they lay in each other's arms the way they had for more than 4 decades, still finding comfort and peace in each other's presence. The seasons continued their eternal cycle. Springs brought new calves and colts, summers brought the hard work of ranch life, autumns brought harvest and preparation for winter, and winters brought rest and renewal. Zachary and Amelia moved through these cycles together, their love a constant in a changing world. They celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, surrounded by family and friends. The entire community of San Elizario turning out to honor the couple who had given so much to their town. There were speeches and toasts, laughter and tears, and through it all, Zachary and Amelia sat together, hands clasped, their eyes meeting in perfect understanding. 50 years, Zachary said that night after everyone had gone. Half a century with you, and it still does not feel like enough time. We will have however much time we are given, Amelia said, and we will make the most of every moment, just as we always have. They danced slowly in the parlor, just the two of them, Zachary humming an old tune while Amelia rested her head on his chest. They moved carefully, mindful of aging bodies, but their hearts were as young as they had been on their wedding day. Time passed, gentle and inexorable. Zachary's hair turned completely white, and he walked with a cane on his bad days. Amelia's hands developed arthritis that made her beautiful needlework difficult, though she persisted anyway. But their minds stayed sharp, and their love for each other never wavered. They were blessed to see their children's children grow and marry and have children of their own. Great-grandchildren crawled across the floors of the house by the spring, and Zachary and Amelia watched with joy as their family tree continued to branch and grow. On a warm spring morning, when Zachary was 79 and Amelia was 74, they sat on their porch watching the sunrise as they had done countless times before. Zachary had been feeling poorly lately, his heart not as strong as it once was, but this morning he felt at peace. "It's beautiful," Amelia said, watching the sky turn from pink to gold. "You are beautiful," Zachary said, looking at her instead of the sunrise. Amelia turned to him and smiled. "We have had such a good life, haven't we?" "The very best," Zachary agreed. "I have no regrets, Amelia." "Not a single one." "Neither do I," Amelia said. "You have made me happier than I ever thought possible." They sat in comfortable silence, holding hands, watching the sun climb higher in the sky. When James came up to check on them an hour later, he found them still sitting there, peaceful and together. Zachary had passed quietly, his hand still clasped in Amelia's, a slight smile on his face. Amelia's grief was profound, but it was not bitter. They had been blessed with 53 years together, years filled with love and joy and purpose. She had been able to tell him every day how much she loved him, and he had told her the same. There were no words left unsaid, no regrets to haunt her. The funeral was the largest San Elizario had ever seen. People came from all over Texas and beyond to pay their respects to Zachary Sullivan, a man who had lived with integrity and kindness, who had built something lasting and good. They came to support Amelia and her family, to share memories and offer comfort. Amelia bore it all with quiet dignity, the same dignity Zachary had wrapped her in all those years ago. She stood straight and strong at the graveside, her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren surrounding her, and she said goodbye to the love of her life with grace and courage. After Zachary's death, Amelia continued to live in the house by the spring. Her children wanted her to come stay with them, worried about her being alone, but she refused. "This is where I belong," she told them. "This house holds all my memories of your father, all our years together. I will stay here as long as I am able." She maintained her routines, tending her garden, reading her books, welcoming visits from her enormous extended family. She spoke of Zachary often, keeping his memory alive through stories and reminiscences. She found comfort in the land they had loved together, in the spring where he had proposed, in the porch where they had sat and watched so many sunsets. Amelia lived for 7 more years after Zachary passed. They were lonely years in some ways, years where she felt his absence like a physical ache. But they were also years of gratitude and reflection, years where she could look back on their life together and marvel at how blessed she had been. On a cool autumn evening, just after her 81st birthday, Amelia sat on the porch in her rocking chair. The sun was setting, and the sky was ablaze with color. She closed her eyes and could almost feel Zachary's presence beside her, could almost hear his voice telling her she was beautiful. "I am coming soon, my love," she whispered to the wind. "Wait for me just a little longer." She went to bed that night feeling peaceful and ready. In her dreams, she was young again, walking down the dusty street of San Elizario in Zachary's jacket, her hand on his arm, her heart full of hope. She saw him turn to her and smile, and she smiled back, knowing that everything was going to be all right. Amelia Sullivan passed quietly in her sleep that night, and when her family came to check on her the next morning, they found her looking more peaceful than she had since Zachary died. There was even a slight smile on her face, as if she had found something wonderful in her dreams. They buried her next to Zachary in the cemetery in San Elizario, and on her headstone, beneath her name and dates, they inscribed the words that best summed up her life. She arrived in rags, he clothed her in dignity and wrapped her in love. Together, they built a legacy that will never fade. The ranch continued to thrive under James's management, then later under his children and grandchildren. The house by the spring remained in the family, a treasured place where generations of Sullivans came to remember their remarkable ancestors and the love story that had started it all. The story of Zachary and Amelia became legend in San Elizario, passed down through the years as an example of what was possible when kindness met courage, when generosity met gratitude. Children heard the tale of the desperate woman in rags and the cowboy who saw past her circumstances to her worth, and they learned that love could transform lives, that compassion could change destinies. In the end, Zachary and Amelia's greatest legacy was not the prosperous ranch or the beautiful house, or even their numerous descendants. It was the example they set of how to love completely, how to face hardship with grace, how to build something meaningful from the raw materials of faith and hope and dedication. They had found each other in the most unlikely of circumstances, and they had created something beautiful together. They had proven that it was never too late to start over, that dignity could be restored, that love could heal even the deepest wounds. Their story became a testament to the power of second chances, to the transformative nature of unconditional love, to the possibility of happiness even after despair. It was a story that would continue to inspire long after the last person who had known them personally was gone. a story that captured the very best of what the human heart could achieve. And somewhere, in whatever comes after this life, Zachary and Amelia were together again, young and whole, their love eternal and unbreakable, dancing under Texas stars that would shine forever.